can I just start out with a disclaimer that I don't know if this is a good video idea. Hi friends, it's Kayla. 4 years ago I made a video where I went through the lowest rated books on my Goodreads and talked about the ones that I loved, the ones that I disagreed with the low average rating, and why. I thought I would redo that with the 1,200 books now that I've read, and rather than speculate about why people didn't like them, I would challenge myself to find an audience that will. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to consider anything under a 3.7 as being lowly rated. If we make a little pie chart of all of the books that I've read and we split it into quarters, there are about 300 books over a 4, I would consider highly rated, 300 books under a 3.7, lowly rated, and the rest fit somewhere in the middle that I would consider averagely rated. So I'm going to sort my Goodreads red shelf by lowest rating, and I'm going to scroll through the 300 books that are under a 3.7, and for every like 10, I'm going to stop and I'm going to pick a book of those 10 that I think I can find an audience for. And the way that I'm going to do that is by finding 1 to 3 other titles that if you liked those, I think you could like this one. So this is definitely a mashup of like the video I did 4 years ago, the current trend of like talking about the lowest rated books on your Goodreads, but also a version of if you liked this, you might like this. I don't know if this concept is gonna work until I begin. So we're gonna start right here. So already finding the first 10 books, I see things that were 5 stars for me. But which ones do I think that I can successfully pitch? So there we have our first 10. Of these books, like, yeah, I want to talk about Mona Awad and Eric LaRocca. I think that Catherine House is something that I can do. I just reorganized my shelves, so I have no idea where anything is, and also I'm about to destroy all of it for some reason. I want these to kind of be rapid fire recommendations, so I'm actually not going to talk about the plot much at all, besides a brief explanation of like, it's about this weird kind of school, people get invited, they don't really know what's going on, but they have to sacrifice everything in order to be there. And I think if you liked The Secret History and Bunny and Luster, this mix of things, Catherine House could work for you, because you have the secret society, you have the bit of magical surreal weirdness, and then you also have a lack of understanding where the main character is coming from, and her actions seem confusing to you. So that's my first pairing. If you like all of these, not just one, because they're not even the same plot or genre, but if you like all of these, I think you'd like Catherine House. Let's do another scroll for 10. Ooh, we have The Need, The Last Final Girl. Oh, okay. I kind of want to choose The Death of Jane Lawrence, even though I didn't give it 5 stars. I think that I can find an audience for The Death of Jane Lawrence. This is a gothic kind of tale, very reminiscent and inspired by Rebecca, where this woman gets involved with a man. There's a strange manor, and he obviously has secrets. So if you liked Rebecca and Burn Our Bodies Down and The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, all of these things combined, the gothicness, the strange explanations, the bit of body horror, the historical context of it all, I think you could like The Death of Jane Lawrence. All of those 3 books, I gave 3 stars, as I did with this. Okay, I'm feeling good so far. Let's continue. Oh, Leave the World Behind. A House at the Bottom of a Lake. Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to choose Leave the World Behind because it is one of my favorite books of the year, and obviously since we're at the bottom of the average rating still, like these are the lowest of the low, it obviously is really hard to find the right audience. And I don't just want to pick a book that's the same genre or the same plot, because like you can Google that. It's about the vibes. So I'm gonna say if you liked The Mist and you liked The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. This is going to be my strangest mashup, but it kind of follows the unimportant characters in a superhero story, just like it follows the unimportant characters during an apocalypse. We have a family staying in an Airbnb, and then people come saying that they are in fact the owners and they need to stay there because the world is ending. This is a tough one to pitch because it's very low plot, but that's what I would say. Let's just keep going. Some of these might be flops, okay? Next we have The Dinner by Herman Koch. Interesting. Oh, okay, I don't want to pitch any of these. Okay, so I'll pick one that I didn't like. The Water Cure by Sophie Mackintosh. I think Do I own that still? If you're interested in this because you heard that it's similar to the Virgin Suicides, then yes. If you like the Virgin Suicides and Boy Snowbird, I think there are a lot of interesting parallel conversations, like fairy tale kind of vibes, keeping women safe through various means and like various successes. But I didn't like this group of books, but I think this book definitely has an audience, and that's who I would recommend it to. Okay, let's keep going. Death in Her Hands. Oh, interesting. Oh, the Pallbearers Club. Okay, I was gonna say I'm confused why A Deadly Inside Scoop would be in the lowest averagely rated. What else is there? Oh, The Cabinet of the Underworld. Okay, we have 2 Paul Tremblays under or around like a 3.3 average rating, and I totally get that. And like, this is an easy one because I talked about this with the Pallbearers Club recently. This already has such a low average rating, and I feel pretty confident that the average rating is going to continue to go down as more people pick this up expecting something and not getting that. This is one of my absolute favorite books of the year, and I think that if you enjoyed the pace and the tone and the focus of, hear me out, The Goldfinch, Woman Eating, and My Heart is a Chainsaw, all 3 of these, in their friendship story, in their very slow, barely horror vibes, in their pace, in their vampire-y plotline where you're kind of constantly waiting for something to happen, but it never really does, and it's more of just a friendship story, I think you could like the Pallbearers Club. And this is about a guy who's writing a memoir from his days in high school. It's very pretentious, it's very obnoxious. There's annotations from his best friend who's critiquing the way that he's writing and his memories of her and her strange supernatural vibes back in high school. Continuing with our next 10, we have In the House in the Dark in the Woods, My Life as an Ice Cream Sandwich, Tinfoil Butterfly, Unburied Carol. Oh my gosh. Okay, there is some horror here that I could talk about, I've talked about before, so I'm actually gonna pick My Life as an Ice Cream Sandwich because I don't understand why this has a low rating. This is a story about a girl who is very much in her own head, kind of has this big imagination, so there's moments of fun comic book stuff, but it's also her moving to a new place and connecting with new kids and not feeling like she belongs. I feel like another middle grade with kind of spacey vibes could be The Year We Fell from Space, which also has like a disrupted family environment. Then also the Track series by Jason Reynolds, especially I think it's the 3rd book. I think if you enjoyed those, or like the child in your life enjoyed those, then My Life as an Ice Cream Sandwich could be a win. Continuing on, oh gosh, questionable books. I kind of want to pick Mayhem. I kind of want to pick The Lost Ones. Girls on Fire, honestly, like I would defend, but it's been so long since I read it that I really don't know how I feel about it now. I'm gonna go with The Lost Ones because like my own book club selections are really getting shafted with this low rating exploration. So I think that you could enjoy The Lost Ones and this woman who is solving the mystery of a missing girl. If you also enjoyed the perspective seen in The Girl in 6E, which is a book I know I own but I can never find, for just with its dealing of trauma and its perspective from a pretty unlikable, on the fringes of society type of main character. And let's also go with Gillian Flynn, specifically Sharp Objects. If you like The Girl in 6E and Sharp Objects, I think The Lost Ones could be a win for you. Let me know, sound off in the comments. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Next up, we have some really not favorites of mine. Oh my gosh, A Fish Swimming in Dappled Sunlight I wasn't expecting to see on the lowest rated. I also want to talk about Katrina Leno though, but this book I only really recently read and it's been recently translated. It's by Riku Onda. I can't find it. I swear I had it right here. What is right here though is a book I would say if you liked Confessions and The Dinner, let's throw it back to this one. If you enjoyed both of these, not just one, but both of them, and their like psychological suspense, really drawn out reveal of a crime, I think you could enjoy this one, which just takes place over one night, just like one dinner, where 2 individuals are trying to extract a confession from the other because of a murder that took place. Okay, next 10. Is this format working for you? I don't know. Okay. Oh, Reprieve. See, I knew this is another one that I think it comes down to marketing. A lot of the books that I seem to be talking about and that I just know have a low rating that I can imagine popping up soon are a mix of like defying genre, maybe being mismarketed a little bit, and Reprieve by James Hahn Matson being pitched as a social horror, which it is. When you throw in the fact that it's also in an escape room, it just leads you to certain expectations. Now for me, this was a 5-star because of its social commentary. So I feel like if you enjoyed Miracle Creek, which also I feel like it's pitched as a mystery thriller, but also just has a lot of really slow developing plot, and a lot of just discussions about society where you're following some different characters, different POVs, different timelines, I think that you could enjoy this. Especially, like, let's throw in if you also enjoy Jordan Peele just generally, which I know like also has horror. This isn't similar to Us as a plot, but all of the conversations that come up, I think that if you enjoy both of those things, you can enjoy Reprieve. And then for our 10th recommendation, The Night Guest, the last boy and girl in the world. Okay, there's nothing from this list I really feel like I need to defend, but the last boy and girl in the world I feel like is a pretty generic YA contemporary, but it got a really like weird short end of the stick when it came out because the main character is really unlikable. And also there's a conversation to be had about mismarketing, because like this kind of looks like an apocalyptic story and like survival and maybe this epic love story, but I just think it paints a really authentic look at teenage life, and like not all of your actions are good. Sometimes you're selfish, your family's a little difficult. It is mostly about this relationship, so I feel like I would recommend it maybe for fans of Stay Gold. That's the first thing that popped into my head, but I can't find it, of course. That's one that more recently came out, but if you feel like going into like the backlist of YA and you're down to read something where you don't always agree with the main characters, you're not always supportive of the relationship that's at the forefront, but you're just learning about a high school experience and people discovering more about themselves, that's who I would pitch this to. Let's move on. Oh gosh, Such a Quiet Place. Night of the Mannequins. Okay, I'm gonna do Night of the Mannequins just because I think I have the perfect pairing for that. Obviously, we just saw The House at the Bottom of the Lake has a super low rating too, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for fans of this, but if you read this and enjoyed it and it's kind of unexplained weird horror, I think Night of the Mannequins would be a good next pick for you. It's about a mannequin that comes to life. Stephen Graham Jones, one of my favorite authors. Obviously, in an ideal world, I'm recommending books that have a higher rating than the one that I'm trying to pitch, but that one is just too perfect as far as vibes that I couldn't ignore it. Oh man, Wilder Girls I feel like I've talked about enough that I don't need to re-pitch it here. Maybe The River at Night by Erica Fahrenkick, because again, if you pick this up thinking it's a mystery, because a lot of what I tend to recommend is mixes of mystery and thriller. This is one of the only pure thrillers that I've read. It's just really action-packed, a group of women like on a rafting trip. This is the one I feel least confident about because these both definitely do have mystery elements. I give all of these 4 stars, but let's say if you like the atmosphere being such a strong element in your thriller reading, then No Exit by Taylor Adams and Force of Nature by Jane Harper could be wins for you, because we have the current day setting and the survival story, but then there also is insertions of relationship dynamics and things that came before this experience. Next up, we have a lot of thrillers I didn't enjoy and some short story collections. So I'm gonna go with Lakewood by Megan Giddings, though off the top of my head, I really feel like I've never read anything quite like Lakewood, and this pairing is tough. If you have other recommendations that have a sort of medical social horror element that you'd like to recommend to me, I would love that. But I think When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole is something that I would say if you enjoyed this and the pace of this, the very slow, drawn out style, which is pitched as a thriller but does feel contemporary but does feel horror, I think that Lakewood could be a win for you outside of the conversations around like trauma placed upon the Black community and gentrification. Like those are things that they have in common, but also just the focus of a woman living in like a new community or a community that's changing and not feeling belonging, but also feeling such a fierce protection for the other people in the community and their family. Moving along to our next 10. Okay, I Crawl Through It is definitely the one that stands out because I didn't like anything else quite as much. But I don't think that I've read another really surreal multiple POV experience, though I know I've been recommended some. This is absolutely one of my favorite books. I read it so long ago. I've pitched it so many times. If you haven't read it by now, like, what can I do to get you to read this one? I guess let me pair it with books that we've already seen in the low rankings. So The House in the Dark in the Woods, which I can't find. I have multiple layers of shelves. For everyone who always asks how I'm not out of space, like, there are layers, and that one is eluding me. But I'm gonna say In the House in the Dark in the Woods and You Must Not Miss by Katrina Leno. If you like both of those and their strangeness, their lack of kind of conclusion and understanding, and just living in this fabulous world where you're okay that it doesn't make a lot of sense, then I think you could enjoy Crawl Through It by A.S. King. Let's continue. I need an easy one. Oh, When No One Is Watching. I mean, if I want to get you to read Lakewood one day, and When No One Is Watching is the gateway to that, what's the gateway to When No One Is Watching? Which actually is another one of my book club picks. I'm feeling very attacked. Knowing The Lock Every Door has a really high readership, and seeing that The Only Good Indians is one of my most successful book club selections, I'm gonna say if you enjoyed both of these, for the atmosphere, for the commentary on the rich, privileged, like, gentrification situations, conversations about revenge also, I'm gonna give these two. If you enjoyed both of these, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole could be a win for you. My battery died. I'm back. Are we like halfway? I feel like we're about halfway through. I don't know. Next up, some books I didn't like. I could do Woman Eating, even though I know I already mentioned this as a recommendation for something else. Who knew that so many low rated things would be good comps for low rated things? Here's what I think about this. It is a slower, character driven novel that has a lot of themes of loneliness and obsession, and it is a vampire, but it's not like an action-packed horror book. I feel like Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi could be an interesting recommendation. This, hold on, paired with some other like short horror, Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford and Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I think that if you liked all three of these and you enjoyed the themes of them, and again, I feel like the slower pace and the feeling of there's something weird going on in the background and you're almost waiting for it to come to a huge head, but then it doesn't. Like, if that's a story that you enjoy reading, did I give all of these 5 stars? Then I think Woman Eating could be a good one for you. Up next is gonna be, oh gosh, like, yeah, Bunny is an easy one for me to want to talk about, but I feel like the people who Bunny is for, I've already convinced you over the last couple of years that, like, it's a win. So I'm gonna go with Tripping Arcadia because I do feel like this one, the books that it's been compared to have been far more fantastical in their gothicness than realistic. I just realized I don't own that one. I got it from the library. It's by Kit Mayquist, and I'm actually going to compare it to The Turn of the Key. I think if you enjoyed this and the idea of a person entering into a family as an employee and taking on more than they bargained for, and there are conversations of like exploitation, being surrounded by a lot of wealth and privilege, and getting into some unsafe circumstances, I think that this could be a win for you. Then, oh, let's do So Happy for You. I do like that there are some more recent reads of mine, some recent favorites of mine that are popping up, because obviously there are a lot of books I've talked about for years, but these are more recent things that if I only have given one review, I've only talked about it once. Here's my opportunity to find its audience. So I don't have this either. I got it from the library, and I would say if you liked Bridesmaids, the movie, for like its setting and its idea of being about a wedding party and a bunch of women, and then Finley Donovan is killing it for its like funny, silly antics. And then, okay, a lot of my contemporary books are about like queer people and coming of age stories. So I'm not going to pull one specifically to reference because I don't want to imply like certain things about the relationship or her specific journey. She's a very opinionated main character. I feel like that doesn't work for a lot of people who pick this up. It is a thriller, but it's not super thrilling for a lot of the story. So if you like a dark friendship, a woman getting into a dangerous situation, she is also very opinionated, but it's also like fun and kind of wild, then so happy for you. Celia Lasky, good times. What do we have next? Some short stories, nonfiction, books I didn't love. Okay, I guess I'm going with Under Lock and Skeleton Key by Gigi Pandian. I had to pick something of the 10. Since I'm new to cozy mysteries and I gave this 3 stars, I feel like I would recommend the other cozy mysteries that I gave 3 stars. This is like a locked room situation. We have a main character whose family is involved in like magic, and then one day a dead body is found in this house and it's this mystery. And I don't want to recommend like a super intricate thriller mystery. So I'm gonna have to go with like Death by Dumpling and A Quiet Life in the Country. I don't feel confident about this one, but I think those who like lighter, cozier mysteries, like that could be a vibe for you. Hopefully something comes up next that I feel confident in. Oh. Okay. My Heart is a Chainsaw is a tough one to pitch, but I've done it before. I've tried. It's been a book club selection. It's one of my favorite books of all time, but I really don't want to harp on that one again because I get that people are just like not into it. But then also my other option is The House Across the Lake, which was a recent book club pick. And people obviously also didn't like this, and it's a lot of people's like least favorite Riley Sager. I gave it 4.5 stars. I don't think it's for everyone, but I think that I can find its people. This is a story of a woman who watches her neighbors. She's spying on her neighbors, which is why I'm gonna pull Watching You by Lisa Jewell, which also seems to be most people's least favorite Lisa Jewell for its voyeurism, watching people questioning the relationships you're seeing, but then also it gets weird. And I think that if you can appreciate the weirdness Behind Her Eyes offers, you can also appreciate the weirdness in here. This really is my perfect over-the-top, ridiculous, unbelievable mystery thriller. So if you liked both of these, I think then you could be a fan of The House Across the Lake. Maybe. Don't hold me to it. Next up, a lot of books I didn't like. Let's go with Reckless Girls because it's another recent read of mine. This is one of those books that I'm giving 4 stars. And I feel like because I don't give out a lot of 4 and 5 stars when it comes to thrillers, sometimes when I recommend them, it almost gets interpreted as these are the best that the thriller genre has to offer, like as if I'm saying that. When in actuality, it's more often that I just had a good time while I was reading it. It's not that it did anything innovative and outside of the box and had like incredible plot twists. I just had fun. I thought the conversations along with the mystery were interesting, even if I could predict them. So I think if you enjoyed In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead, and I need to think of some type of island mystery book, but I feel like most times the island mysteries I read are very gloomy and like fall winter settings and not this vacation vibe. The ones that I can think of that are a bright fun vacation vibe, I didn't give high ratings. So I think I am just gonna offer this, though I don't think they're similar. The comp titles that this has gotten, I don't agree with. But it's about a bunch of people who go to this isolated island, and it's more about their dynamics. This feels like a weak comparison and I can't find it either. But Big Little Lies, because of the character dynamics, the backstory we eventually get revealed, the bit of a revenge plot. I don't know, but I've been enjoying slower drawn out mysteries lately. Next up, we've got, let's go with Come Closer by Sarah Gran, because I do think that there is something that I can recommend for this. And you might disagree, but the thing about Come Closer is it's a possession story, and a lot of people talk about how it's so horrifying. It is a scary horror, and I don't agree with that. And so to go into it with the right expectations, I think what I'll offer you is Goddess of Filth by V. Castro, which is also about possession, but then also Death in Her Hands by Otessa Moshfegh, because these equally have a main character who is slowly losing her grip on reality, though it's because of two completely different scenarios. There is like a weird, fun, light-hearted element that comes along with these, where she's just creating this like silly mystery in her head, and she's also like taking quizzes of like, am I possessed or not? They're also super repetitive, which I see mentioned as a flaw, but something that I liked. And then obviously, because this is a traditional possession story, I think if you enjoy both of these, Come Closer might be a good one for you. We're already in the 3.6s, so I think we only have a couple more to go. The one that stands out of these, I'm not gonna try to pitch The Maidens, okay? I enjoyed it more than The Silent Patient, but I understand that I am wrong. And those were very circumstantial for me, so I'm not going to defend it. The Echo Wife here by Sarah Gately is a huge favorite of mine. So while I definitely understand the low ratings for this, side note, I just found fish swimming in dappled sunlight. I think if you're looking for a strange sci-fi meets thriller with a husband and wife and some weird relationship dynamics with her clone, and you're okay with not understanding where the main character is coming from, not having a lot of justifiable decision-making skills, just in 250 pages. I think if you liked We've Always Lived in the Castle and recently You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca, I know it's unlikely that someone has read both of these and not The Echo Wife, but if you did and The Echo Wife is on your radar, I think that certain things in here that I can't fully explain to you, if you loved these, this is a good one. Next up, our next 10. See, I understand again, like the Peter Swanson that I love isn't for everyone. And I think that The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker is a fun one to talk about because I haven't talked about it in so long. And since I read it years ago, I have read books more recently that are good comps for it. So in this story, we're dealing with a kind of pandemic. It's a sleep-related pandemic that has to do with falling asleep, not being able to wake the person up, dreams, and this hysteria kind of taking over the world. And since then, I think back then I compared it to Bird Box because that's the only reference point I had for this kind of post-apocalyptic situation, but they're so different genre-wise. I think that two of my favorites from this year that I compare a lot to each other already, How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu and Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel, have a lot of similar conversations to The Dreamers, as well as being from a whole bunch of different perspectives, which is what I saw people not loving about The Dreamers. You didn't just get one first-person narrative dealing with this pandemic. It's a more removed writing style where you're following so many different people dealing with different things, different stories throughout it. I loved it and gave it 5 stars, and I want to reread that one. But I think if you enjoyed these, this needs a little resurgence. We're getting so close to 3.7. Oh my gosh, do I want to talk about Going Bovine or do I want to talk about Alexander Sirowy? I'm forever bummed that Alexander Sirowy and her YA thrillers, which are some of the only YA thrillers I've ever liked, didn't get a lot of traction. She's not currently publishing a whole bunch of stuff because I would be reading it. But I think it's easier for me to pitch Searching for Sylvie Lee by Jean Kwok. I don't own this one either. I borrowed it from the library for the Goodreads Reading All of the Best Thrillers of the Year. And again, I think that the audience that this attracted was the thriller mystery community. While it's much more suited for literary readers, while there are mysterious things like to follow and to learn, Celeste Ng's books I think are the #1 best thing to compare. If you enjoyed Everything I Never Told You and the familial conversations, the culture and the immigration commentary, and this idea of a woman so desperate to find her missing sister and following in her footsteps on this journey to discover what her sister was really up to and who her sister truly is, I think these would appeal to the same audience. If I can give you one more though, Come Find Me by Megan Miranda is my absolute favorite Megan Miranda. I feel like it's really underread, and I rarely find the opportunity to talk about it because it is a mix of like YA, relationship dynamics, a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of mystery, but the family is really the central focus, and the love of a family, the desperate search for answers really driving the narrative. I think that these would be good contenders if you were planning on picking up Searching for Sylvie Lee. Oh gosh. Okay, next 10 we have to choose from are some things that I feel like I could pitch, but the one that I'm most surprised to see on here is The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water by Zen Cho, because I can't imagine why people don't like it. Maybe I do know and I just don't remember, but that's not the point of the video. it's to find a good comparison. And the first thing that came to mind is Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. They're both short. They're both stories of disguising your identity and going on a little road trip where there are some feminist conversations and Western vibes. You know, found family joining in on this group of bandits and accomplishing a goal with many different reveals to happen throughout a pretty short story. So if you liked this, I think you could like this. This next selection is full of so many short stories, and I don't know who I would pitch Confessions of a Shopaholic to. So I think I'm gonna go with Plain Bad Heroines, just because I gave it 3 stars and I can think of multiple books that I also gave 3 stars that would be a similar audience. This is a really long book, so it definitely requires a lot of investment, but I think if you enjoyed Night Film and its discussions about like making a movie and its focus on media in general with a bit of a mystery to follow, and then you liked A Lesson in Vengeance, which features a lot of queer characters in a gothic setting, this has all of those things. And what all 3 of them have in common is this celebration of storytelling. Whether it's in film or novels, it's like a love of the arts. There's a bit of mixed media and a general spooky overtone to all 3 of these things. Oh, and we're in our last selection of 10 before we get to the 3.7s. This is so tough. Mexican Gothic, Sawkill Girls, All Her Little Secrets. But of course, I will go with The Wild Ones because it was one of my favorite books last year. And let's see, it still has only 700 ratings, which I just think is wrong. There is absolutely an audience for The Wild Ones. I can see why people don't love this, especially people who pick up a ton of fantasy. The world building and the magic system, I think, is unique and not as developed as things that I've read before. But for me, and the lack of understanding that I'm down for, and then the found family vibes and these women working through their trauma together and traveling around, having experiences, finding other people to support. I just think this is such a beautiful story, and also is written in a unique way, which might not appeal to some people, which involves like first person plural language. We have a lot of perspectives in here, and some people have said that that's confusing. So if you also felt that way about We Ride Upon Sticks, but you loved it, and also just generally if you like Anna Marie McLemore, I think Nafisa Azad would be a good author for you. Working together for a common goal, some different scenarios being explored, difficult topics for the reader to be wading through. But I think as far as standalone fantasy goes, these are all some of my favorite things. And that's it. We should have had 30 recommendations within those like 300 books I just scrolled through. I hope this concept made sense. I hope it wasn't too swift that I went through each recommendation, but I did want to get through a lot and just like give the titles. So if I convinced you to pick something up, please let me know. If you disagree with something, or better yet, if you have better comparisons, because I know there are definitely books out there that I haven't myself read. I only wanted to focus on books that I've actually read and can accurately compare. But if you have better ones, please let me know, because that'll also be a whole host of recommendations for me to read. So thank you in advance for that, and I'll see you next time. Bye.